Shellie Schmals.
Hello out there, Indie Adam here. First, I gotta say this. I really like your wardrobe.
Aw, thank you.
I'm a big Universal Monsters fan
Yeah.
myself. Tell me a little bit about yourself. You run Queen City Stories.
Yes.
Before we really, bring into the whole thought process behind that project and your show, tell me a little bit about you.
So I am a Buffalo hometown girl. I grew up here, like literally like did the whole across the street thing, went to Amherst Middle, Amherst High School, went to Damon, went back when it was college, down the street to UB for graduate degree. And then I went to Atlanta and I was in Atlanta for a really, really long time. And there I studied Oh, I worked in, like, social services. So I worked with a lot of different people in different, demographics, always with something like marketing or, development, volunteer work, community engagement. But I've kind of found my calling when I walked into an improv theater called Relapse Theater. It was all, like, renegade. The owner actually was, like, squatting the space for 6 months. It was in, like, an old abandoned church.
Really?
And he was doing improv classes there, and he's just the coolest guy. His name is Bob Wood. I love him. He's met like a brother to me. And it was from there where like the whole creative world of Atlanta opened up to me. I met not only like comedians and fellow improvisers, stand-up comedians, sketch, film, so much music, break like we had like the world's largest breakdancing competition there. I mean, it was crazy, the kind of stuff that Relapse would do. And I was able to really blossom there, both as a performer, but, also as, like, a producer myself in, helping produce comedy shows there. I produced the Girls of Relapse calendar, and we would do shows, and it was just we did 2 calendar releases, and it was just a really nice way for me to be able to meet people and talk to them not only about their projects, but also kind of bring them into the theater too. So I think those are kind of my roots of, community driven programming through the arts.
Well, I gotta say that's already a big step or a leap in the direction of being community oriented. And you and I met through the Buffalo filmmaker
Yeah.
mixer, and we got the opportunity to meet a few times. And
Mhm.
this is even that much better, where we actually have time to talk to one another and get to know each other. We talked very briefly about Queen City Stories. Where's the inspiration for that now, and like, what are you doing with it?
Yeah, so Queen City Stories started kind of as an offshoot of something I was doing while I was still living in Atlanta called Older and Bolder. And that's where I was talking to burlesque performers and pinup models
Yeah,
who are 40 years old and older, and just finding out their journey and what inspires them, how they got their stage name, what it takes for them to create an act, and just, about their journey to the stage. And it was just a really fantastic way to meet people.
yeah.
And so as I, knew I was coming to Buffalo, I knew that, I wanted to kind of find my different style of meeting people as well. And Instagram Live always worked for me because, I don't have a beautiful setup like this.
Well, I mean,
My phone is always in my hand. And so that's my resource is my phone. And so it just really made it accessible for me. And I brought yeah, so I figured that that's the best way for me to help elevate the people that I meet, because that's really what I love to do. I am a very big advocate, and I call myself like a cheerleader for the arts. Not a traditional artist myself, but I think my skill is really bringing and talent is really bringing people together
yeah.
and making ideas that may seem disparate somehow work together. So I love like things that are immersive. I've done like immersive theater before. I've done all sorts of kind of like music and dance shows, visual arts and performance, and just being able to kind of really give the audience a different view and touch and feel of how they experience their surroundings.
You would say that you like to please the audience with, you like to take the audience away from the mundane,
Yes.
and you like to bring a little bit of difference to it. That's how I've always been. If I can, because I've done film and stuff like that, but if I could take somebody away for an hour and a half, they allow me that privilege to give them a film, and it could be bad, good, or indifferent. But to be able to, you know, experience that with somebody is a very different experience. I mentioned recently, I enjoy 2 different types of sitting. when you go to a theater, if you have the opportunity to see your film on the big screen, there's 2 good locations to sit, either the very front row
Mhm.
or one of the front rows or the very back of the theater. And the reason for that is you get 2 different interpretations. You get the entire film plus the action of the audience, seeing where they responded or they don't. And when you sit in the front, you sit in and you just hear the verbal cues and you know if things work or not. And transitioning into what you do and how you're, like, bringing a lot of the community together. I know you talk with
Mhm.
Sean Sanders, that is.
Yeah.
I've been working with him since probably the beginning of his career.
Oh, yeah.
But bringing into the community, what started the Queen City Stories outside of the Instagram Live, bringing it into the Buffalo community?
So I thought as I was trying to do my research and learn a bit more about Buffalo, I was looking for avenues of where I could help elevate individual people and their art. And I see, you're doing an amazing thing here. I know that Casting Buffalo has a podcast, and there's a lot. Oh, Dawn also has a wonderful podcast, a starving artist podcast.
And that is the truth out there,
Yeah.
friends. It is a starving
Yeah,
artist
we're
type of community.
yeah, everybody. And so, for me, I thought that that was my part I can do with Queen City Stories, and it's actually a part of 3 different, like a series that I'm working on. So I've got the Queen City Stories that's here to kind of elevate people and hear their stories. And I've got Queen City Live, which is something that I'm working on, developing, and that's going to be more of like a opportunity kind of cabaret for all different artists to come together to do and to bring their talents to a stage, and whether or not they're, comedic talents, musical, visual arts, fashion, whatever they want, it'll be a cabaret that also people who are like maybe casting directors or people who are producers or set designers can come and see other talents that they may not, get to see on a regular basis together in one area to kind of help promote. And then the third is a Queen City film pitch, and that's where you get
Oh,
three people who are working on projects, or maybe they have projects in the hopper, where they will actually be pitching their film to a panel of experts. And so it's a way to get live feedback from people in the community who work with film, who've had projects that have gone from idea to implementation to getting, bought by a distributor.
mm,
It's an I
your hair will fall out.
yeah, yeah,
I'm just gonna say that
seriously,
now. Your hair will
seriously.
fall out
It's
for it.
really stressful, but
Yeah.
if you have, if you've never worked with a line producer before and you're a first time filmmaker who's working on and trying to budget their film, and you have a pitch deck, to be able to get feedback from somebody who's a line producer, maybe a location scout, or, maybe somebody in marketing, but somebody who's got experience that you don't have, you're able to see your pitch deck in a different light. And really this part of it is an inspiration from my dear friend Caroline King, who runs Simba Life Collective in Atlanta.
Okay.
And Caroline has, I was a panelist on her film pitch ATL. So that was really an inspiration for me, and seeing the beautiful work that Caroline was able to do in the community there.
Well, what people don't realize in the Buffalo community is there is a lot of artists, but there's not a lot of shows.
Mhm.
The more that there are podcasts and shows that showcase Buffalo and, start to, I don't know how you want to say it, unite
Yep.
everybody. And, you're on my show today. Maybe I'll be on your
Yep.
show tomorrow.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? So the way that we all work together and we start to create a community where you can actually see them, physically and stuff. You start to connect a face with a vision and an idea and stuff like that.
And I think what I'm really passionate about is helping create that like ecosystem
Yeah.
and a pipeline for artists where they can be seen, share their work, and gain knowledge.
Yeah.
And that's really like I think if I'm looking at myself and my company, Von Schmals, and in a bucket, that's really what my passion is about.
Now you just do art. Well, I mean, like video content type stuff?
No, I mean, I'm working with all sorts of mediums. Like right now, I'm working with the film Gilded Splinter, and
Oh, yeah.
yeah, and so we're fundraising stage for that right now, and we're actually producing an art show as a fundraiser to
Did you
promote
post
the
about
film.
this? Because I feel like I seen something
Yeah,
about it.
yeah. So, Matt Wazinski and Fred Pallone, they're the co-writers of Gilded Splinter, and so every Sunday, almost every Sunday, we're doing free films at Nietzsche's that Matt's curated that are based on based on the inspiration for Gilded Splinter.
Mhm.
And yeah, it's just a way to like create community, go see a free film, but also donate to the cause. Every penny counts. I mean, for us
That's the truth.
filmmakers,
That's the truth.
it's you have to be figure out alternate ways for giving, and this is one that's very much driven by demonstrating the inspirations for the film, but also bringing people together. You don't have to go every Sunday. You can go whatever Sunday you want to,
Yeah.
and so I think that that's the type of thing that's also really cool to me about Buffalo is that everybody's willing to take a chance.
Now, am I taking you from right now the Infringement Festival? Because I feel like
No,
you would be down
I
there.
would love to be a part of Infringement Festival. This year wasn't my year for it, but I think next year will be. I'm still kind of new and just taking everything in.
Well,
But I
you're
have
starting
friends.
yeah, but you've heard of it.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, so
absolutely.
you know now you're starting to navigate the scene a little
Exactly.
bit. We talked before off camera
Mhm.
about good old, DC
Yes.
because you're an admirer of a collection I have,
Yes.
and I'm curious to know, we talked about James Gunn. Do you know about Zack Snyder?
Yes.
Do you know the difference and contrast of the films?
I mean, I'm just a real lover of the content. I love
It doesn't matter if it's James Gunn or Zack Snyder.
Yeah, I
Okay.
mean, to me, is if it's a good film and also if it's made in an ethical way,
Yeah.
that's really what makes a difference to me. Especially when you see directors who aren't very ethical. That kind of like brings a red flag to me.
Yeah. And I know Warner Brothers, which is the
Mhm.
company where that houses this
Yeah.
currently, had issues with the ethical element with the whole Zack Snyder
Yeah.
stuff. But not to take away from it, you're a big DC. Well, you'd have a vast knowledge of DC. Are you a Marvel fan or a DC fan
I
more?
think once the Marvel movies started coming out, I definitely have a very deep appreciation for Marvel. I feel like especially like for me, what got me was like WandaVision. Like
Yeah.
WandaVision was like broke down all those barriers.
WandaVision to me was good up until the boner. And I'm not being rude by saying that. There literally is what happened. There is a boner in the end of the film. And he should have been part of the Fox universe, but that's a whole different story.
Yeah,
I don't want to get on that high horse. But yeah, I love
yeah.
Wanda Maximoff. She's a
Uh-huh.
really good character.
Yeah, and I just thought the way they presented the story too,
Yes.
how each, episode was a different decade and how they wove the story into a larger picture of, the whole Thanos universe and the
Yeah.
aftermath of all that and like the pain she would like that was just so it was just so beautifully done.
Yeah, Elizabeth Olsen, she's come a long way from
Yeah,
just
for
being
sure.
like a side character in one of the Avenger films to
Uh-huh.
like now like a leading lady in one.
Yeah.
So I do hope she gets like her own like solo
I
film
hope so
someday.
too. Yeah.
And I think she will. Truly, I
I
mean, people like her too much.
And I think it's probably in a couple years from now, but
Yeah.
it's coming. I feel like it's leading up to it.
Now, are you into like Godzilla and stuff like that and King Kong? Because you're a Universal monster
Yes,
fan.
yes.
So are you into those two?
I am, but I don't really know so much about it. Like, I will definitely go and see those movies. I've definitely seen my share of like, old King Kong and the some of the more recent ones that have come up. But
Yeah.
I'm not like a connoisseur.
No, that's all right. You ever seen any of the older Godzilla films?
Uh, yeah, like a long time ago.
And I mean old, because
Yeah,
now
oh, the
they
old black and whites. I
yes.
know.
Yeah.
Back when, oh, what was that show that was on here where they would show the crazy movies? I think I was like in grade school.
TBS?
It wasn't
TNT?
it wasn't TBS, it was a Buffalo show
Oh, I don't remember.
that I remember going to this is the stuff that dates me, but I remember going to Tops and getting, like, 3D glasses to watch So, like, a 3D film on like, from a, Buffalo channel. If
Mhm.
anybody's out there that remembers this, please tell
But
me.
yes, please put in the comments or something.
Yes, because I know I'm not crazy, but it was like some gorilla gets loose in a, circus kinda movie. The very, like,
Okay.
B like, very, like, CB 1950s movie.
Yeah, yeah. So, are you a physical media collector? Because if you notice here, I have a couple.
I'm not so much. I think, like, for me, I love my collection of dresses. I think that's what I collect is,
Yeah.
like, clothing. I love, like, vintage. I've
I
basically
can see
for
it.
the past,
I
like,
can see it.
15 years, my style's more like retro pinup, and so I just love, all my stuff is more or less in storage right now. I love dresses. I had a whole closet that was a second bedroom that was like, my friends would like dub it my dressing room, because it was all like my shoes, my clothes. So I'm not so much a physical media collector as I am, I think I would say like a fabric collector.
Okay. All right. The reason I ask is the only reason I ask is because sometimes, like, I've asked a few people if they like physical media, and me, physical media, you can't change.
Right.
Just like your dresses,
Right.
right? You can't. Well, you can alter them. You can
Right.
alter them. And I guess in a weird way, you can alter a movie, but if you get a copy of it, it's like the way that it was meant to
Right.
be
Well,
seen.
it's like with the old Star Wars.
Yeah,
Like,
Star
you
Wars.
can't change, you're not gonna go back and change Jabba the Hutt. You can really see him
Yeah.
as he was originally
Right.
shown.
Yeah. How is it different from Atlanta to Buffalo? Like, what's the difference in community and relationships?
Well, I think the community has so many parallels. I think that both communities deeply care about each other and care about the work. I think that that's very much shown here. I think the differences that I've seen, Atlanta's probably 15 years like, ahead of Buffalo in a lot of ways. I think just because there was more projects there to do, they had to really Atlanta had to really speed up the workforce development very quickly to meet the demands of everybody coming in from outside, so they weren't hiring from other places, bringing their own crews in from California where we had the workforce in Atlanta. So, I would say like what I've seen some of the differences are like we really have camera ready cities that were able to, talk about licensing, talk about permits, have a workforce ready for any part of Georgia to come in and film. I think that the PR of Georgia and the film community is really, really good. I think that it's here in Buffalo, but I'm not sure that I think the resources are much more limited.
Well, it's
And
spread out more too.
right,
It's not, we're still trying to build the community, I think, in a
right.
way. But in the same fashion, there are a lot of, industry type work people here. So you're
Right.
talking about workforce again.
Mhm.
There's quite a few people that have various talents, casting directors, like you mentioned before,
Yeah.
but also crew,
Yeah.
PAs, editors, writers, all those types of things.
Mhm.
So if we can get more on the map and continue to
Right.
hire these people,
Yeah.
it's gonna
It's more
stimulate the
steady
economy.
work.
Yeah.
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 For sure. And I think that there's a lot of community organizations here. I think it's just getting a handle on everybody. Kind of what you're saying about the connectivity.
Yeah.
And that's something I'm really passionate about too, is, figuring out and navigating like who's doing what, who's offering what, where is there the main page for the resources
Right.
for everything.
Right.
And so
Buffalo Film Extras. That does seem to be the catch-all. We've had Columbia Pictures in
uh-huh.
there, Disney, Sony, which is a subsidy of Columbia, but, I mean, and that wasn't I don't know if you know this, but I do run that admin page. I'm the ad one of the admins of that
Uh-huh.
page, and, like, I didn't seek those folks out, they found that page.
Uh-huh.
When you go to that group, you have to answer a list of questions,
Sure.
so everybody's vetted.
Sure.
So 14,000 or so, there's a couple people that probably squeak by,
Uh-huh.
but, not many, I'll say that.
So have you ever thought about translating that page into like an online resource?
I would
That's like
love
a like
to
that.
take it to the next level. I've had it I started in 2013 because I was looking for
Uh-huh.
extras, and then all of a sudden it just exploded because there were so many people that wanted to do film in Buffalo. So they started gravitating towards this extras page, and it became more about crew and acting,
Mhm.
and, there are lead roles on there quite
Uh-huh.
often. I mean, if you want the role, that's a different story, of course, it's you gotta make sure the project's right for you.
Yeah.
But, that is a testament not to my drive to create that site, but to, have the community, meaning the community itself, come
Oh,
together
for sure.
and self-sustain it.
Well, and that's the one thing I definitely see in Buffalo. Everybody is committed to each other's projects.
Yeah.
I've seen so many people who, are working on one project and maybe they're the PA or their AD or they're doing sound. And then when it comes time for them to do their own project, everybody's leaping in to help them.
Yeah.
And so there's really a connected system of support here. And I think that's amazing.
Plus, I think it's important too. With everything going on in this industry, especially locally, one of the things that, and I mean, I know I've tried to, get to more as a producer director, is paying everybody.
Yes.
I think it's very important. And I think it's very important that if you're just starting off, even as the indie guy, you should pay at least the minimum wage. The more work we can do here, the more self sustaining we can do. And I think it's very important that we have to figure out ways to develop careers
Right.
that generate money for people.
Right, and I think that, a lot of that is like the offshoot of having studios here
Yeah.
where it helps to stimulate the economy where because you've got studio representatives here that ups the hotel industry,
Yeah.
that ups the
Everybody
restaurant
works off one
industry.
another, right?
Exactly.
Do you do any other type of art? Photography, painting, anything like that?
I used to do a lot of, like, mixed media when I was, like, I was yeah, like, I loved, like, putting my hands in the paint, figuring out, like, what my colors were, going to magazines, like, figuring out what my statement was gonna be,
Yeah.
like, putting in lines. I wish I still had some. It's probably yeah, I gave a lot of it away, and, I think I might have pictures, but either way, it was really fun, but, like, I just didn't stick with it. Once I found a
Yeah.
stage, that was really what I
Well,
loved to do.
I was literally was about to ask you next. Let's talk about that stage work. Tell me a little bit about the history of that and what you do and what.
Yeah, so, it really started off with improv. The troupe that I was in was 2 Girls, 3 Eyes, and we were the house team at Relapse. We performed on Friday nights, and I really feel like I spent half my life in Atlanta in, like, a basement of a church doing shows and look, doing rehearsals, best time ever.
Sure.
But that really, like, just being able to get up every Friday night and being able to do shows with, like, the people who are my family was, like, the best feeling. From there, like, my personal journey was I started doing improv, did, like, a little bit of sketch, tried stand-up, but then I found burlesque. And
Yes.
burlesque is really where I found my groove, found my passion, found my sense of creativity where I could really put my stamp on a show, and it was for me, I loved working with the other performers, creating show themes. I had my first troupe, I had a co-producer who would do the hair and makeup, and I would do all the publicity and logistics and that kind of stuff. So we worked so well together, and we actually won Best Burlesque in 2013 for
Bravo.
Creative Elopement.
Bravo.
You're very
Bravo.
proud of that. And, our performers were it was so fun, and we would just come up with these, like, amazing ideas, and I was the one who was, like, writing the scripts for them and really figuring out how the show would transition from one thing to another, and it just wasn't just calling the girls up on stage or the performers up on stage, it was really, like, what's the narrative? Like, how is everybody placed so there's, like, an arc to the show? And, what's the story? How does it have meaning? And that was really really special for me, and also just working personally with performers, figuring out for them, like, what's their own narrative, their own personal storytelling, and for me, I found that, like, that's resonated with me so much with burlesque. There's a huge scene, in Atlanta, in Georgia, and it's, called Frolicon, and so there's so
Frolic on.
Frolicon, there was a whole lot of overlap between the burlesque and drag
Yeah.
community and Frolicon. Actually, there's a few burlesque shows that happen at Frolicons.
Oh.
Yeah, so I think, like,
Huh.
in Georgia, I mean, for as southern as it was also super progressive, and, like, sex work is sex work,
Yes, it is.
and it goes from all aspects of it, and so I think that's something that, was embraced in the burlesque community, and it is as being a part of the sex work community in just a different way.
And for so many years, sex work, well, because that is what the phrasing
Yeah.
actually is. People back in the day looked down upon it.
Mhm.
And a lot of people still do look down upon it, but now it's much more socially accepted
Mhm.
than it was back when I was a kid. I can see how much, stigmas and things change.
Mhm.
But, it comes to the point in this little shindig, called the Fast 5.
Okay.
These are 5 questions that I'm gonna give to you. The first thing that comes to mind, um, and here we go.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Yes.
Alright. Biggest life lesson,
Oh, never stop trying.
your safe place,
My dog.
your hidden insecurity,
My nose.
greatest motivation,
Just to put smiles on people's faces.
which leads me to the last question, current happiness level.
I
1 to
would
10.
I would say I'm probably at a 7.
Yeah.
I mean, I love being in Buffalo. I was very sad to leave Atlanta. It's Atlanta, like, that my chosen family is there, had so many projects and people that I worked with and collaborated with, places I missed, but I can, like, close my eyes and kind of, like, go back there.
You can still taste it.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
could still taste it, but, I mean, I just needed to get home, you
Oh, yeah,
know?
sometimes you do.
So, it's been so it's like filling my cup to be here,
Yeah.
so
Well, there's a lot of things to do here. Hopefully, the work element becomes more, secured because that seems to be the ongoing issue in the local scene. But, with everything going on, do you have anything new coming up that you're getting ready to do, produce, direct? I know you're doing Queen City
yes.
Stories. Is there I mean, I know you talked about the other ones, but what about like next projects and stuff?
Yes, so I'm so happy you asked that question. I'm co-producing with my dear friend Ruby Riot, the Bebe It's Burlesque show at Revolution Gallery, and it's a burlesque and drag inspired Schitt's Creek show.
Schitt's
And
Creek
yes,
show.
so if you love
Okay.
Schitt's Creek and honoring the dearest Catherine O'Hara,
Oh, yeah.
our beloved mother, I
R.I.P.
am Moira Rose. It's gonna be so much fun. We have such a fantastic cast. And then in March of 2027, I'm launching Film Strip Fest, which will be a 2-day film and burlesque festival. It's short film and burlesque. So I love the name Film Strip Fest.
Yeah, that is
The
that's
double
unique.
entendre.
Yeah.
And, it will be at Revolution Gallery, and it'll be 2 days. The first day will be a couple of short films, a couple of burlesque performances, a little more traditional in that way. Saturday, I'm curating, and it will be like a judged show where a burlesque performer will be chosen and a short film will be chosen, and, the burlesque performer will be dancing immersively with the film.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So the question I haven't asked, and I guess I probably should ask, but otherwise I'll get yelled at, is do you partake in any of this like events, like the burlesque
Yeah,
do you
so
dress in the
I
part?
oh, yeah, so, I mean, I'm always dressed for shows, whatever the theme is, and I have danced before and, peeled as well, but I haven't really done so in Buffalo. I'm trying to get myself a little bit settled here
I understand.
before I take the stage in that way, but I will always grab the microphone and host at any moment, so
Are you a singer too? Can you sing?
oh my god, I wish I could. It well, like little MTV Shelly would have loved to, like, be Madonna, Cyndi Lauper, like, dancing across,
I can see
the
it.
stage.
I can see it.
I think I have the presence of a lead singer of a rock band, but, like, not the voice.
Well, singing isn't for everybody. I can tell you it's not for me.
I'm a performance artist when it comes to singing, let's put it that way.
I mean, I will do karaoke, but even
Yeah.
that people like shriek
Oh,
at
yeah.
it. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
I'm very tone deaf.
Well, that would be really great to have you around me then,
Yeah.
because if you're tone deaf, I won't be judged as
Yeah.
bad.
Oh, yeah.
But I want to say thank you very much for coming out here today
Yeah, thank
and
you so much. This
getting a
was
little bit to know each
wonderful.
other. And,
Absolutely.
I can't wait to see where you go
Yeah.
because it does seem like you have a lot of potential in what you're creating and the craft that you're coming to Buffalo with. So I'm very excited for that. Stay tuned for more. And thanks for joining us.